What's going on, guys? It's Fantasy Stock Exchange here, bringing you another weekly episode of our rankings video, where we basically show our own rankings and how they relate to ECR. Again, if you guys want to check out our full rankings, they will be up every week starting on Thursday on our website, thefantasystockexchange.com. Link in the description. But yeah, this video is just to kind of go over our biggest discrepancies in ECR. Maybe if there's any that we disagree on personally, we will all cover it in today's video. But before we do that, Corey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. And for what it's worth, if you guys don't know what ECR means, it means expert consensus. They take, at Fantasy Pros, they take a consensus rankings from all the experts in the industry that signed up for ECR. A lot of the big names that you know, fantasy footballers, Justin Boone, all these like Jake Seeley and Jared Smola and all these guys, like they take all their rankings, consensus them into a consensus rankings for each of the weeks. And then me and Danny, because we have access to the expert platform, can make our own rankings and compare them versus what the rest of the experts think on certain players. I know that wasn't really how I was doing, but I'm doing fine.
Yeah, I mean, we're all doing fine.
Yeah,
We're ready. Football is back this week. We just saw last night's Thursday night football game with the Panthers versus Falcons, and
of course I'm going up against Curtis Samuel, right? Of course, like the 1 week that Curtis Samuel does something, I'm going up against him.
oh, yeah, that's just a mess. So you guys should be seeing this on Saturday morning. But yeah, before we get into it, though, as always, gonna hit that intro on y'all. Okay, so we're going to start off with the quarterback position. So as you guys can currently see on the screen, myself and Bush's quarterback ranking. So you can start it off. Who are guys you are higher on than consensus?
Yeah, among like the top like 10 guys or so, there wasn't too much deviation between myself and ECR, and I believe you as well.
Yeah.
But one guy I am higher on is Cam Newton. I have him 5 spots higher than consensus. I believe consensus has him 18, and I have him at 13. The reason is because Cam Newton's floor is around that 13 range. Even when he has bad games, he had a bad game in Denver, but he was able to, like, he had 0 touchdowns, like 130 yards passing, and he still put up like a 20-point fantasy day because he ran a touchdown and rushed for like a couple yards as well. So I think he's one of those guys that you can't rank at 20 because he's going to be more consistent than that week over week. And not only that, but this is relatively going to be one of the faster-paced games of the slate. Plus, Cam is coming off of a bad game, and everyone's kind of saying the Pats are done and all this kind of stuff. Like, it just seems like a very anti-narrative thing to have Cam Newton play well this week. Like, I feel like he's going to bounce back, as will the Patriots, because I don't think there's some dog shit organization that's just when they get down, they're going to be shit for the rest of the season. I think they're going to bounce back in this one. I actually think they're going to win this game.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. Everybody is down on the Patriots. Whenever people go against the Patriots, say, oh, they're not going to do anything, yada, 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 that's when they surprise you and win the game. But yeah, actually glancing through when we were actually comparing our rankings, basically every single one of the guys that we had changed from ECR, we had identical pretty much. So, I mean, guys, as we'll mention, you mentioned Cam Newton. A guy that I'm going to mention is going to be Joe Burrow, who I have 3 spots higher than consensus. I currently have him at 8. ECR has him at 11 in a matchup at home against the Tennessee Titans. I mean, to break it down simply, Joe Burrow is going to be in a high-paced matchup with the Tennessee Titans. Again, the Bengals are always going to be one of the highest-paced offenses in the league. Not to mention, the Titans are expected to win this game. They are the underdog in this, or the Bengals are the underdog in this game, pretty much. I mean, I actually have to check the point spread, but theoretically, a lot of people in the industry expect the Titans to end up winning this game.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be an underdog.
If that's the case, we should expect a ton of throwing volume from Joe Burrow and keeping up with guys like, as we'll mention later, A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill. Those type of guys are going to be snapping on the other end. If the Bengals want to be even close to competitive in this game, it's going to be on the arm of Joe Burrow with guys like Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins ending up having solid outings. So I'm definitely really high on Joe Burrow this week. Again, quarterback 8 for me. I know he's, I believe, the same ranking as you this week.
He is also quarterback 8 for me. Yes, yeah. That is correct. I think also with the pace thing too, this is going to be the fastest paced game of the week.
Yeah.
And I believe it has the highest over-under. I'd have to check off the top of my head, but this should be a lot of points. You want parts of this game. That's just what it comes down to. You want Tannehill, you want Burrow, you want Higgins. You want Tyler Boyd with Christian Fulton's actually going to be out for this game, so Dane Crookshank's going to be playing the slot. You want the Titans receivers, A.J. Brown is my number 2 receiver on the week. Like, you want pieces of this game. So, I definitely don't hate that. On to Big Ben. I actually have 5 spots higher than consensus as well. Ravens are number 3 in the NFL, according to Football Outsiders, in run defense DVOA, behind the 2 that you would expect, Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. You can't run on the Baltimore Ravens. And they just added Yannick Ngakoue to that run defense. And, I mean, we saw, like, the Jags front has basically been rebuilt in Baltimore with a much better organization around it. I think this is likely going to be a game that James Conner struggles, and Big Ben has to throw to win. We haven't had to see Big Ben have to do that quite yet. He's had a couple, like, solid games, but we haven't had a Big Ben game yet. Like, he hasn't had a 4-touchdown passing outing, and I think this could be the game that we see that, and we'll get to the receivers, but I also have them higher as well.
We'll get to James Conner a little later, though, because I'm kind of the belief that I think he'll be fine in this game, but I'll get into that later on. Let's just keep talking about the quarterbacks. I agree with Big Ben for the record. I mean, I also have him 5 spots higher than consensus. I mean, it just seems like we're completely on the same page with every single quarterback we're talking about right now. But, yeah, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger has been playing well. The team is 6-0. The offense is scoring over 30 a game. And a thing I'm kind of going to mention with James Conner is that although rankings going into divisional matchups, obviously they take effect, they have to be weighted a little bit less than normal because, again, anything can happen in a divisional matchup. I mean, heck, we saw this week, this Thursday night football game, the Falcons corners just decide to absolutely lock up Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore.
We saw the Raiders hang 40 on the Chiefs. Like, divisional matchups are weird.
It's crazy to think. And honestly, like, a guy in Ben Roethlisberger, yes, again, the matchup on paper figures to not be the greatest, I guess, but he's just been playing like a top 15 quarterback. And with so much uncertainty at the position, are you really going to start guys like, let me just check who's currently ranked ahead of them?
They have some injuries too. The Ravens, I believe Jimmy Smith is going to be out for this game, which is going to leave like Anthony Averett probably as like a starting corner. And whoever, whether Chase Claypool or Deontay Johnson's going up against them, I just think the Steelers are one of the best teams in the NFL right now. There's not many defenses I would be taking to stop the Pittsburgh Steelers, and their own defense might be one of them.
In my opinion, right now, the Steelers are a top 5 team in the NFL again. You can get into it. The AFC, it's going to be them, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. NFC,
they're the best team in the AFC right now. And I know that's kind of dumb to say because they're the only undefeated team in the AFC and the only undefeated team in the league, I think. But
yeah,
I think the way they're playing, they're the only team. If you look at the Chiefs and you look at the Ravens have a good defense, but their offense is actually struggling. And then on the Chiefs side of things, they have a good offense, but their defense is not playing well. Like, they're the only complete team in the AFC and probably one of the only like 2 or 3 teams in the NFL that are a complete team.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. Give me the Steelers and all their stocks. Also, not to mention, Ben Roethlisberger looking for a little bounce back game, if that's the narrative, against the Steelers or against the Ravens, because he kind of struggled a little bit against Tennessee last week in the second half. But we'll see what happens. But I definitely like Ben Roethlisberger +5 ahead of ECR. Talking about another guy that we're actually both collectively actually, no, I'm done with the higher guys. I'll just mention a guy that we're both collectively lower on, and that's going to be Carson Wentz, -6 from consensus. This isn't even anything against Carson Wentz. This is just against the industry, ranking Carson Wentz as the quarterback 6. Like, I understand if he was playing consistently well all season.
For what it's worth, he has been pretty good for fantasy.
That's fair.
I think he's like a top 12 quarterback right now, or like top 10 quarterback. But like, my issue with Carson Wentz, it's just a trust factor. Like, I know the Cowboys are dog shit and they can't cover anyone. I understand that. But I don't trust the Eagles passing offense yet. Like, I could, maybe with Jalen Reagor coming back, Fulgham taking his obvious steps, and then maybe when Dallas Goedert comes back, like, they might become a great passing offense, but they're not that yet. They barely beat the New York Giants.
I agree. Not to mention, I mean, we're talking about Carson Wentz's output last week. Yes, he had a good game. But in reality, I mean, he also did score a rushing touchdown. It hasn't really been a consistent output through the air all season. I could be dead wrong and eat crow on this because, let's be honest, the Cowboys are the worst defense
I still
Maybe
have him at 10, so he's
yeah.
still high for me, and I would still definitely start him. I don't think he's a top 6
No.
quarterback.
I mean, the Cowboys may have the worst defense in history. I understand that. But again, on paper, they actually are. They're on pace to give up 584 points on the season, which
Oh,
would be an
trust me,
NFL
in
record.
2017 or 18, I can't remember which year it was, but the Bucs defense through like 6 games or something, like Mitch Trubisky had just flamed us for 6 touchdowns. And we're like, this is actually statistically going to be the worst defense in points allowed, passing offense, rushing off. Like, it was going to be an all-time terrible defense. So I understand
Yeah.
the
Um,
being down. I love defense. It's my favorite side of the ball. So I love the fact that we have a good defense now.
I mean, yeah, I played linebacker back in the day, so fucking love hitting some people. So yeah, go defense. Just not the Cowboys defense.
Yeah, let's rip through the last of these quarterbacks
Yeah.
here. We're spending a lot of time on QBs. I have Stafford 6 spots lower than consensus. My thing with Stafford is that he has a bottom 3 matchup. The Indianapolis Colts are legit against quarterbacks. They have not been giving up a lot of points to fantasy quarterbacks. I believe it's like under 15 points that they're giving up to the fantasy quarterback position. And Stafford has not also been a high ceiling guy. Like, he hasn't been what he was before he got injured last year. He has only thrown 3 touchdowns one time this season. He's only thrown 300 yards one time. So he has not been like the 300-yard, 2-touchdown consistent guy that he was for a while before this year. They're actually running the ball okay. And just in general, they're just not throwing it all over the yard like they have in the past with Stafford.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I have him 4 spots lower than consensus. A guy that I have lower on consensus that I mean you didn't get into, but I'll mention Jared Goff. I mean, the matchup against Miami, Miami's actually been playing pretty decently overall defensively. Kind of shocking considering to what they were expected from a talent perspective going into the season, and with Byron Jones kind of missing time. But I mean, they've been pretty solid defensively overall until Jared Goff actually shows me that he can give me consistent top 15 quarterback output. He's just not going to be there for me. Again, he's ECR quarterback 14. I have him at 17, so not a huge discrepancy. But this is more of a show me before I rank you there type ranking with the Jared Goff. Because obviously with talent, he could be in that situation, but he just hasn't shown it yet, in my opinion.
He's honestly the exact same as Baker Mayfield. Like, the
Yeah.
way that they're running the ball is exactly the same as the Browns. Like, it might not look as sexy because they don't have Kareem Hunt running the ball or Nick Chubb running the ball, but Jared Goff's a low volume guy. He wasn't last year, and he hasn't been for most of his career. That's why we don't associate him with that yet. But he needs to be in a good matchup to be able to start because he doesn't throw the ball enough, and he's also not good enough as a quarterback. Like back when Russell Wilson was throwing the ball 20 times, that he could still be viable. So Jared Goff, to be honest, he needs to live in the 16 to 22 range every single week. And then when he has a good matchup, obviously he'll be on the higher end of that.
Agreed. Yeah. If you're looking at it, it's pretty crazy because last year everybody's saying, "Oh, he's got to surely have positive regression with the touchdowns, positive in general, because he only threw 22 despite throwing the ball 629 times." So last year it was just an inefficiency thing. This year it's a volume thing. Like, he went from 629 passing attempts last year to now he's on pace for basically what, like 30 a game right
Like
now?
500 probably, low, like
480,
490, 500.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's not passing the ball a lot. They're running the ball like crazy. And so do you have anything else on QBs, or can we jump to running backs here because it's probably the more important position?
Yeah, just Jimmy Garoppolo. I have 4 spots lower than consensus. I'm going to briefly mention again. This is more so of a I can't trust him type of a deal. Like, I mean, it's still Jimmy Garoppolo.
To be fair, though, the Seahawks have been absolute garbage against fantasy quarterbacks.
100%. I fully agree with that. I do believe that he should be a solid option. Again, I have him at 20, which is higher than I usually would have him. Just ECR 16, I can't bite the bullet on that because it's still Jimmy Garoppolo. It's still an inconsistent player, and it's still a run-based offense in the 49ers.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. So on to the running back position. I guess I'll talk about these first 2 guys because they're in the same backfield. I have Justin Jackson 6 spots higher than consensus and Josh Kelly 5 spots lower than consensus. And my thing about Jackson is we saw the split of Jackson and Kelly the first game against New Orleans. I think that was the true split because New Orleans was a tough ground matchup, and as are the Broncos this week, which is why I think that split that we saw is going to be more indicative of what we see this week because the Broncos are much more of a pass funnel defense as opposed to a run funnel like the Jacksonville Jaguars were last week. And I actually mentioned this on the Start Sit show that I thought Kelly might have the better game because they could get up early, and they did, and run the ball down the Jags' throats, which is exactly what happened. Yeah. So with Jackson as like the scat back, I think he's going to be the more valuable piece this week, and this will probably be a week-over-week thing with these 2 guys. Obviously, Kelly was more involved last week because of the Jags being a terrible matchup, or not a terrible matchup, a terrible defense on the ground. So I think this is the week. Plus, Jackson was hurt last week too. So I think this is the Jackson week. He's at RB20 for me, and I feel very comfortable starting him.
Yeah, I am in the same boat. How many spots higher did you say you have in the consensus?
6.
I have 5 spots higher than consensus. So I'm way on it with you. Again, I also have, like, to be fair, I do have Josh Kelly a little bit higher than where you have him. I believe I have him as my RB25 right now. So
I have him at 32, so he's pretty significantly lower.
Yeah, that's more so like the dead zone of running back this week is like
25 like once you get after, like, I would say, like, almost it's almost David Montgomery is almost the prime meridian for running backs that you could start every single week. Because David Montgomery is like the worst running back who gets a lot of volume. So he's always like the guy that after him, it's always like, oh, well, this guy get the volume this week. Will that guy get the volume this week? Like once you get after David Montgomery, it's like you get into your DeAndre Swifts, your Justin Jacksons, your Jermichael Hasties, your Jerick McKinnons, like those guys.
I actually have both Swift and Jackson like back to back ahead of David Montgomery this week.
I have him after Montgomery, but it's only because David Montgomery is guaranteed his volume.
Yeah. I can't even say safety because, like, realistically, it's just volume.
He's not safe. He's guaranteed his volume. That's why I didn't say he's a safe play, because he could very well get 4 points, but he might have 20 carries to get you 4 points.
Yeah, which is just absurd to think about. Yeah, I fully agree there on Jackson. He's looking really good this season. And as I mentioned, going into that waiver wire week, going into that matchup against New Orleans, I said, Justin Jackson, this is how it's going to be allocated in the backfield. Justin Jackson is going to get, again, he's not going to be Austin Eckler for you, but he's going to get the efficient receiving type work for the offense, while Kelly's going to resume as the grinder. You're not going to see a huge uptick in touches for Kelly, as some people were trying to say. That proved to be the case. And as we saw in a run-dominant type game script last week, Kelly did get a good amount of work. Now, he wasn't efficient with that work because, again, he's still a grinder. But in a week that should be a more balanced matchup instead of a blowout against the Jaguars, I do think that ultimately that's going to be a more of a 50-50. And if that's the case, give me the more efficient Jackson over Kelly any day.
They could blow him out, though, if Herbert keeps playing the way he's been playing.
He's been amazing.
He's the offensive rookie of the year. I don't give a fuck what Justin Jefferson does for the rest of the season or what Joe Burrow does for the rest of the season. If Herbert keeps playing like this, he's going to win offensive rookie of the year, and it's not even going to be close.
I agree. So the first guy I'm going to mention is actually a guy at the top, a guy that we both absolutely love as a talent and fit in their offense. That's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I have 5 spots higher than consensus. He's actually my RB5 on the week. I didn't even realize that until when I put it in the sheet. I'm like, oh my, he's my RB5. More so it has to do with the, I don't want to say lack of depth at the RB position right now, but that's basically what it is. But talking about it, people want to say, oh, Le'Veon Bell's in. He's going to get a bunch of work cut out, yada, yada, yada. In his first week last week, in a game that basically was out of hand within like the first 5 minutes of the game, because the defensive / special teams of the Chiefs put up 2 touchdowns within the first half of the first quarter. He still logged 53% of the snaps and 50% of the touches out of the backfield, in that blowout win. Again, we're mentioning he faces the New York Jets next week. 6th most points allowed to the running back position. And in my opinion, again, CH is still the main guy in the backfield. And as you're going to be talking about with Le'Veon Bell later on, like, don't fade him because Le'Veon Bell is a name, as I know you're going to get into, because it's just ludicrous that people want to hype up guys like Le'Veon Bell and Leonard Fournette because, quote unquote, they're going to eat into a bunch of the volume of the main guys. Like, that's just not going to be the case. CH is still the guy. I do think Le'Veon Bell can give you, we'll say, mid to high RB3 type value this week, but people who are ranking him as high as he is just absurd. But you can get into that later. But either way,
I'll just talk about it now since we're talking about the backfield. Le'Veon Bell, I have 8 spots lower than consensus. He's currently RB20 in ECR, which is like I said, after that David Montgomery RB19, 18 range, you start getting into the question marks. So I can kind of understand why they would have Le'Veon Bell there, but I also think there's way better question mark running backs ahead of Le'Veon Bell, like DeAndre Swift, the 2 Niners running backs. I don't think that Le'Veon Bell has earned that after 6 carries and 30% of the snaps in his debut. I know he's Le'Veon Bell, but he's also not Le'Veon Bell. The Le'Veon Bell you're remembering is from 2017.
Yeah, when he had, 85 receptions and he was a top 3 running back. He's not that player anymore, but people want to, again, cling on to narratives from back in the day, from guys that won them championships back in the day. As you mentioned, you have him 8 spots lower. I have him 7 spots lower. I am in full agreement. Again, I have CH 5 spots higher than consensus, Le'Veon 7 spots lower than consensus. So the discrepancy is much larger, in my own opinion, compared to where the industry currently has them. I think they have them. What? Let me just check it right now.
He's 20. He's at 20.
CH is at 10 in the industry, and Le'Veon Bell's at 20. I have CH at 5, Le'Veon Bell at 28. That just goes to show you like how much of a big disparity there is between myself and the industry. But yeah, anyways, who's your next guy that you're higher on then?
Yeah, so let's talk about another backfield too, because I'm actually higher on both of these guys, and that's Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
Part of it is because I'm a coward and I don't know which one to rank higher. I have J.K. Dobbins 3 spots higher than consensus. I believe he's like my RB 26 right now. And I have Gus Edwards 5 spots higher than consensus at like RB like 31. So I think both of these guys, with Mark Ingram expected to be out, it has come out that he's like doubtful or something for this game, and I expect him not to play. I know it's a tough matchup. It's a bad matchup against the Steelers, but if it's 2 guys and not 3, there's enough volume in this backfield to make these guys like back-end running back 3 or back-end running back like 2 early running back 3 type starts, because the running back position's getting gross, guys. Like there's not a lot of great options. You might be like, man, you have J.K. Dobbins RB 26. You must think he's going to go off. It's like, nah, not really. Like there's just not that many good running backs that I know. At least J.K. Dobbins has a role. He has a pass catching role, as does Gus Edwards. He's the like grinder, probably gets a goal line touch here or there. So that's why I have them like that. We don't know the split yet. And that's why I said I'm a coward. I have no idea which one to rank that much considerably higher than the other, because we could come out and J.K. Dobbins could get 17 touches coming off the bye, and they might have done the whole like post-bye rookie bounce thing. Or we could come out and Gus Edwards gets 20 carries. Like I have no idea.
Yeah, no, I agree there. Talking about J.K. Dobbins in particular, I have him actually 6 spots higher than consensus. He's my RB 23. Again, you mentioned Ingram is expected to be out. He missed another practice today. They're fully expecting to go in that game without him. And what I have here is, while the Steelers' run D is elite, we know this by now. As I mentioned, in rivalry games, you have to somewhat negate those rankings, as you mentioned, as we saw in the Raiders vs. Chiefs.
Plus, the Ravens' run offense is better than anyone's. If anyone's going to run on the Steelers, it's going to be the Ravens.
For sure. And hypothetically, say they do bottle up Dobbins, he's still going to have a role out of the backfield. He's still going to catch you a few passes, might get into the end zone. And in general, he's just such an elusive back that if he's given any type of space, he's definitely.
And with Bush out too, with Bush no longer there, we saw like Derrick Henry actually had a pretty decent game on the ground against. I mean, I know he's Derrick Henry, but I mean, maybe the Devin Bush injury is more significant to their run defense. Obviously, their front is still fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
Once you can't get past Tuitt and all those big guys up front, but once you get to the second level is when you can actually do some stuff against that run defense.
For sure. And like talking about Dobbins again, he could start the game like first 7 carries for like 11 yards and then bust out like a 35-yard run just because he's that type of player, right? So ultimately, like those type of players, no matter the matchup, always have a chance to return more on value because, again, they have the ability to bust off a 35-yard. If it was like Ezekiel Elliott facing against the Steelers defense, I'd have no fucking idea.
Or David Montgomery.
Yeah, like you just know that the 20-yard gains aren't going to happen, so you have to realistically rely on good 4 to 5 yard gains, which just isn't going to happen against a team as consistent as the Steelers.
And Gus Edwards, for what it's worth, is actually pretty good. Like, it's not like he's just some like 2-down banger that sucks. Like, he's actually like very good at what he does. So you got to hope for the touchdown, obviously, with him. But let's get off this backfield. We've been talking about it for a bit to another backfield that I have 2 guys, 1 guy higher, 1 guy lower. That's Ronald Jones, 4 spots higher than consensus. Leonard Fournette, 7 spots lower than consensus. My thing is, don't buy the Rojo overreaction. I know every single week we do this. I say it myself. Ronald Jones is a week-to-week player, obviously, and I understand that, but everyone's overreacting as usual. Ronald Jones probably got benched because he dropped a pass. That's probably what happened because he did drop a wide-open pass from Tom Brady, and maybe Bruce Arians was like, dude, you got to hit the jugs machine or else you're not going to be on the field. But Bruce does that. That's just how he is. He's still the primary ball carrier. He came out right after that happened and said, yeah, Rojo's still the guy. Like, we just like Leonard as more of a third down back, which I never thought I'd say in my entire life. But Leonard Fournette's our scat back, which is the point we're at with no one can catch on this roster. And the funny thing is that we almost brought in Devontae Freeman, who dropped like 3 passes last week. So we'd have even more running backs who can't catch. Anyway, Ronald Jones is in a favorable game script this week. He's going against a defense that is susceptible to some big runs. He could get to the second level. Blake Martinez, all he can do is tackle if he catches any balls. So he'll get out in space. I think Ronald Jones gets back on track. It's probably a touchdown in this game and runs for like 70, 80, maybe 100 yards.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have him 3 spots higher than consensus and Leonard Fournette 7 spots lower. So
plus the receivers are hurt too, so they're going to need to rely on the run game.
Yep. No, I agree. Guy I'm going to mention again, we talked about the Dobbins Edwards backfield. I'm actually going to do on the flip side of that game. It's going to be James Conner, who I have as 4 spots higher than consensus. I currently have him as my RB8 on the week. And just going over it. Let's look at it objectively right here. James Conner is the bell cow running back for a 6-0 team that averages 30 points per game. No matter what, he's going to give you output because, again, he's the bell cow for a successful offense on a successful team. He's currently the RB15 on the season, despite getting hurt week 1 and already having his bye. If you're talking about his points per game since week 2, because he got hurt during week 1, he's been the RB7 in that time frame. Again, the matchup I understand is tough, but then you take in the divisional factor as well. I understand that, but I still trust Conner. He's logged 63% of snaps in every game since that week 1 outing and is coming off an 84% snap game just last week. So overall, if you're looking at a player that can overcome a bad matchup, it's going to be a guy in James Conner who's getting the opportunity. The offense always in scoring position. And in general, he's been involved in the passing game as well. So when you're talking about James Conner, we should start talking about him as a week-to-week mid-RB1 as opposed to where people wanted to have him even a couple weeks ago as a low-end RB1, high-end RB2. Because in reality, given the ambiguous type feel of the position, you don't know what you're going to get every week. You know what you're going to get with James Conner. When James Conner is healthy, James Conner is the bell cow for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I have him like just outside of that range. I have him at 12, so I am lower than consensus on him. I have guys like Zeke Elliott, Josh Jacobs, Gio Bernard with Joe Mixon not going to be playing in this game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I have those guys ahead of him just because of the matchup. It's just a matchup thing for me. And James Conner, much like you said for Clyde or for the Ravens running backs against the Steelers run defense, James Conner is not an overly dynamic running back. He needs good matchups, I would say, to do well. And this is not a good matchup because he's not going to break a 70-yard touchdown. He's not going to catch 13 balls and fucking get into the end zone. Like he can do something in the receiving game, but he's not like overly dynamic. So I think the way I look at him is he's like he's RB12 this week. He's going to probably be solid. He could get into the end zone a couple times and make me look stupid, but I think that's what it's going to take for James Conner to be good this week is to get touchdowns. And against this run defense, I just don't know if it's going to happen.
It might have to be a bet this week.
Might have to be. Yeah. Okay, so do we have anyone else that we're higher on than consensus, or should we go lower?
Jamal Williams for me, I have to quickly
I would have talked about Jamal Williams, but the problem is I don't think ECR is caught up with the fact that Aaron Jones is going to be out for this game. And also one thing I want to talk about is I have no idea what to do with the Seahawks backfield right now because as of right now, Carlos Hyde is listed as doubtful. So I don't think doubtful. I don't think he's going to play. So and Chris Carson is questionable or a game time decision or whatever. So we're going to have to see. I would recommend you guys definitely tune in Sunday morning when we actually know who's going to play. I don't know if they play at 4 or not. I can't remember, but
I got to
either way, we need to and Travis Homer is also listed as questionable. Like I have no idea who the primary running back is going to be. I would say it goes Carson, Hyde,
Dallas,
Homer.
Yeah.
So if any of the guys above each one is hurt, then you just kind of go to the next guy. But we have no idea how it's going to go. We'll just have to wait and see on that backfield. One thing, the weekly rant that why Jonathan Taylor is lower in ECR is coming right now. Jonathan Taylor, I have 10 spots lower than ECR. Why? Because Jonathan Taylor is basically David Montgomery right now. And he, not only is he basically David Montgomery, he's also basically Marlon Mack. He's getting Marlon Mack's role. He's not getting Nick Chubb's role that we think he should get, which he saw in the first game without Marlon Mack, but he hasn't seen since. He gets volume, but not as much as we all hoped. He hasn't exceeded 13 carries more than 2 times so far. And again, like I said, one of them was coming right off of that Marlon Mack injury. He hasn't exceeded 13 carries in a couple weeks now. It's not like he's super efficient either. Again, he's running like David Montgomery. He's not running like Jonathan Taylor, the 2,000-yard rusher that we saw a couple times at Wisconsin. Until one of those two things changes, either he starts playing better and runs more efficiently, or he gets elite volume, he's staying in mid-RB2 range. I'm not ranking him in the top 10.
Well, I mean, I agree with you having him lower. I basically just have to stop ranking him top 6 until he plays like it. Again, I have him four spots lower. I have him at 10. And that's basically just, again, the question marks around the position. But I fully agree with the sentiment that people want to rank Jonathan Taylor higher than he's been performing based off his athletic ability, based off his college resume. Rank him based off the objective facts that he hasn't been playing well. That's all I'm going to say.
And this is him in the NFL. NFL, like, talent matters more than college talent. We saw that with guys like Sony Michel. Like, once they get to the NFL, their college profile really doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know we didn't say much about the Packers. I just will quickly say something. Aaron Jones got rolled out today. Jamal Williams is a top 14 running back for me. He's my current RB 12 or 13. Let me just check. And he's my 13.
I'm at 17, so I still think I have him right behind Taylor and right between Melvin Gordon and David Montgomery. So he's definitely a very startable guy.
Yeah. And just briefing over it for me. Last week with Aaron Jones out, 89% of the snaps, 24 opportunities. Actually saw 24 opportunities to A.J. Dillon's 5 opportunities. So, again, with Aaron Jones out, to me, he's actually a fringe top 10 or so back. And even 13, to me personally, feels low for Williams in a plus matchup against the Vikings. So, I definitely like Williams. And the last guy that we're going to mention at the running back position that I am 6 spots lower on, Boston Scott. Like, lols. I'm not ranking him as an RB1. He's not RB11. Like,
yeah. Okay, so that one also is probably going to change. And again, even if they're going off the assumption that Miles Sanders isn't going to play, and if Miles Sanders isn't playing, he's like a top 18 running back, not a top 12 running back.
Agreed.
And if I think Miles Sanders is going to play, based on everything I've seen so far, it sounds like he's good, like he's questionable. He's not like a game time decision or doubtful or anything like that. So I think Miles Sanders is going to play in this game, which is why I have Miles Sanders as my RB5. Obviously, if that changes, then Miles Sanders, you can't start him if he doesn't play, and then Boston Scott probably moves into the range where Jamal Williams is.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, just okay, say Sanders doesn't play. Yes, the matchup is nice, but come on. Boston Scott has 2 – guess the stat, right? Boston Scott has 2 career games with 15 or more touches. Okay. This isn't a desirable RB situation.
We always want to do this with fantasy. We're like, okay, this guy went down. This guy's just going to take over. It's not like that's not how it works. Like, there's very few situations in the NFL where the one guy goes down, the next guy just takes his role.
And
like Cleveland is one of those situations.
The Eagles are not one of them, with a depleted offensive line, with a situational game plan that's affected given Sanders being out. And I mean,
their mentality is different when Sanders is out. They're looking to be a committee when Sanders isn't there. It's not like they're just going to give – like, if they were going to give Boston Scott workhorse roles when Sanders isn't there, then Jay Ajayi would have still been a workhorse when he was there. Like, they're only giving Sanders a workhorse role because Sanders is so good.
No, I fully agree. It was boggling when I saw he was the consensus 11. Like, what the heck? But let's move on to receiver, though. Let's get off of Boston Scott.
All right, yeah, we could probably move a bit faster with receivers just because a lot of these are matchup based. And I'll talk about 2 receivers at once because they're on the same team here. But Preston Williams, I have 12 spots higher than consensus, and Devontae Parker, I have 5 spots lower than consensus. As of right now, PFF doesn't expect a shadow from Jalen Ramsey for whatever reason. I have no idea why. To me, I think that's bullshit. I think he's going to shadow Devontae Parker. And not only that, but Devontae Parker's dealing with a groin injury, which could affect him as well. And we don't really know who Tua is going to like. That's my thing with Preston Williams. If Preston Williams is not owned in your league right now, and I talked about this on the Start Sit show, go get Preston Williams before he has a big week and is a hot waiver wire ad, because he might go out there and Tua might throw him 11 balls. Like, we have no idea who Tua is going to favor. Maybe Mike Gesicki gets more targets. Maybe Devontae Parker's still the guy. Maybe it's Preston Williams. Maybe fucking Isaiah Ford gets 10 targets. We have no idea. So I think I just have this gut feeling that this is going to be Preston Williams' like guy, quarterback. Like, he's just going to love him because of his ability to separate. He might not like Devontae Parker as much because he's a rookie quarterback who probably doesn't want to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I think I saw that on PFF too. Didn't PFF like project like Jalen Ramsey the freaking shadow like Isaiah Ford?
Yeah, they project him as a slot corner, which I have no idea why. Like, I kind of want to look up his alignment thus far this season. Maybe he's a slot corner now. I have no idea.
Maybe he's just been playing against a lot of number 1 receivers that operate from the slot,
which he did last week against Allen Robinson. And Allen Robinson's moved to the slot quite a bit.
Yeah, so I fully agree there. I actually have Preston Williams 14 spots higher, and that's based off the same assumption that, yes, Tua Tagovailoa, we don't know who his number one target is yet. We assume that it's going to be Devontae Parker. We assume that Devontae Parker is going to lead the team in targets.
I'm actually willing to bet it's Williams. I don't know why. I just think I think it's going to be Williams.
It's a gut feeling. Yeah, I mean, realistically, this is the lowest value that Preston Williams is going to have all season because we saw that Ryan Fitzpatrick did not utilize Preston Williams. We don't know how Tua Tagovailoa is going to do it. So, as you mentioned, if Preston Williams on your waiver wire, I actually picked him up in my home league. Go pick him up. Stash him at the end of your bench. If he has a good week.
I think you can use him too.
Yeah, he has a good week. Maybe you can package him in a piece and go for an upgrade. And you just got a guy free off waivers that you didn't expect to have value. And now he has a ton of value because Tua actually loves him. So I agree there fully. And again, 14 spots higher than consensus. I'm all the way in on Preston Williams. But let's talk about a guy that I actually have a lot higher as a top 10 receiver. And that's going to be Kenny Golladay. He's my wide receiver 5 on the week. Again, he's PFF's 5th graded receiver on the season, and he has an expected 31% coverage advantage against his primary matchup this week in Xavier Rhodes. I mean, Kenny Golladay has just been a beast since returning from injury. He's just been consistent. Hasn't really gotten, I don't want to say a blow-up week yet, but this is going to be
it's been a touchdown thing for him. He's kind of like playing like Julio Jones right now, where he's just getting targets and yards, but he's going to get a couple touchdowns. He led the league in touchdowns last year.
I was just going to say, I mean, I expect this to be his breakout game this week from a fantasy perspective against a familiar foe in Xavier Rhodes, who he's basically torched throughout his career. So Kenny Golladay is a top 5 receiver for me. I know you're in the same boat in that regard. I believe you have him, 3?
No, I have him a bit lower than that. I did actually move him down.
Gotcha.
Because I moved Tyler Lockett to 3 because of his matchup, and I moved Tyreek Hill up as well.
So you have him at 5 then?
I have him at 6.
Okay, so we're right on the same board there then.
Yeah.
Go into next guy.
Yeah, I'll get into another kind of same situation as the Miami Dolphins, the 2 Vikings receivers. So I have Justin Jefferson 7 spots higher than consensus, and Adam Thielen 8 spots lower. It's the same thing I said for Preston Williams and Devontae Parker. Thielen will, and we know this for a fact, Thielen will see a shadow from Jair Alexander, who does travel to the slot also. I actually had to look this up. He'll move with Thielen wherever he goes, and that should mean good things for Justin Jefferson because, I mean, I like Josh Jackson coming out of Iowa, but he has not been that good in the NFL. And Justin Jefferson is playing like, if not for the 2 quarterbacks, the offensive rookie of the year. So I think he's just going to light whoever is in coverage on him while they just avoid throwing at Alexander.
No, I fully agree. I mean, I've said this on record multiple times. This may sound like a bold claim, but objectively, Jair Alexander has been the best cornerback in football this year. 10 receptions.
Sorry.
10. Okay, top 2 then. 10 receptions for 51 yards allowed on the season. I think the Cowboys give that, like each Cowboys corner gives that up in a game pretty much. It's just Alexander's been so sticky in coverage. Again, you said it. He's going to follow Thielen in the slot. I just don't expect a huge output game for Thielen. Again, I have him 7 spots lower than consensus and Justin Jefferson 5 spots higher than consensus. So fully on the same page with you. And I know you're going to touch upon another similar situation in the Metcalf Lockett area. So I'm just
I got another similar situation right now that I'll talk about. Scotty Miller, 8 spots higher than consensus. Why? Because Evans is going up against James Bradbury in shadow coverage. It's the same exact reason. Bottom 6 pass defense in DVOA, which means if Bradbury is the only good coverage guy, which he is on that defense, and he's on Evans the whole time, everyone else is going to eat. Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Rob Gronkowski, whoever the running back that can catch that day is. Everyone's going to do well in this game, probably except for Mike Evans, which sucks if you have Mike Evans. Good news is I think Mike Evans is the best trade target in fantasy coming off of this game because I think he's going to be bad in this game. And if he is bad, then everyone's going to be like, oh, shit, Antonio Brown's coming in now. Week 9 is the first game that Antonio Brown can play. What does that mean for Mike Evans? To me, it means good things for Mike Evans because if you're a defensive coordinator, you are focusing more on Antonio Brown than Mike Evans. And if Mike Evans has less attention for the first time in his entire NFL career, he's going to be sure to make good on that opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, talking about Evans just this week, though, as you mentioned, very tough matchup. I have him 7 spots lower than consensus this week. You mentioned you have Scotty 8 spots higher than consensus. That expected shadow against James Bradbury, according to Ian Harditz, he actually tweeted this out, so you guys can give him a follow on Twitter. James Bradbury has limited Mike Evans since 2017 in his last 6 matchups to 29 total receptions, or 4.8 per game, 388 total receiving yards, or 64.6 per game, 59 targets, 9.8 targets per game, and that was his output on those targets, with 0 total touchdowns in those 6 games. I mean, James Bradbury is, in my opinion, a top 5 corner in football, has definitely been playing like it. And with
He's a
Evans,
shutdown guy. Like he might and he actually does get a few picks here and there too. But he's a lot like Byron Jones, the guy you're familiar with, where he just does his job. He shuts people down. He doesn't necessarily make these huge like break on the ball picks and take him to the house like a guy like Marcus Peters does or something. But he's going to shut you down, and teams don't throw at him. Why? Because the other Giants corners suck.
Yeah, no, fully. I mean, with that factor of James Bradbury, with Evans been playing banged up, I mean, I just can't see, like, maybe he scores a touchdown here to give you value, but I just can't see him giving you a like much higher than a low end wide receiver 2 in value. Because again, Bradbury's been his kryptonite.
Yeah, and if Evans has a good game in this one and Brady like throws for like an ass ton of yards, Tom Brady's going to win MVP. I think it's going to happen because with AB coming in and Godwin coming back soon from his thumb injury that he has, if Brady becomes matchup proof, which he showed the past couple of weeks, he's thrown against some solid defenses and done well against them. I think he might be on his fast track to MVP. Do you have anyone else you want to talk about real quick, or can I get into one more that I have? Or two more, sorry, I have.
I'm just gonna quickly say a guy that I'm higher on would be Amari Cooper. Again, it's 5 spots higher. He's been ultra consistent this year. We kind of talked about it in the live stream, but he's had 6+ receptions and 79+ receiving yards in all but 1 game this year. I get it. Matchup versus Slay is tough, and I mean, Ben DiNucci starting. But when Cooper's on his game, he can be an unguardable type receiver. So either way, while I don't expect the quarterback change to necessarily have a huge effect, again, Andy Dalton was not playing well regardless. Ben DiNucci is on.
It didn't have an effect from Dak to Dalton. Like he still favored Cooper. Like Dalton immediately just goes, okay, Cooper's the guy, which is what Dak was doing. So what makes us think like, yes, the targets might be worse than they were from Dalton or Dak, but I think DiNucci's still going to have that same kind of like, okay, Amari Cooper's the guy I need to throw to kind of thing. Quickly, while we're talking about the Cowboys receivers, I have CeeDee Lamb 6 spots higher than consensus because it's mainly a little bit narrative-y, but he's the easy target. He's the guy in the slot. He's the guy over the middle, and I think Nickel Roby-Coleman's going to be on him, which is like, I mean, he sucks. So actually, he's not on him. Crayvon LeBlanc was supposed to be on him, but Crayvon LeBlanc is actually injured. So I think Jalen Mills is going to be on him, which ain't going to end well. And I don't think CeeDee's volume should slow down anytime soon, even though his quarterback is taking a downgrade with what seems like every single week.
The two
CeeDee's
guys
just getting too much volume.
The 2 guys that are basically locked in for volume, no matter the situation for Dallas, is going to be Amari Cooper and it's going to be CeeDee Lamb again.
And I don't want anyone else on that team. I don't want Schultz. I don't want Gallup. I don't like even fucking Elliott right now. But it's just those 2 guys I think are the engines of the offense right now, and I think you should feel more comfortable starting them, even if Ben DiNucci is starting. One guy I want to talk about before we get into guys that we're lower on. Henry Ruggs going up against, I have him 6 spots higher than consensus. He's going up against the number 2 defense and allowing points to the fantasy wide receiver position. I called the Gibson breakout game last week. I was like, this is the matchup. It's a cupcake. When you have an explosive guy who's just ready to break it. Like we literally saw Antonio Gibson break a 40-yard run in the first quarter against the Cowboys last week. I think we could see something similar where we crank on the red zone. As soon as you go take a piss, it's Henry Ruggs touchdown, first touchdown of the touchdown celebration or loop that they do at the end of NFL Red Zone. I totally see Henry Ruggs just breaking a long touchdown in this game.
29 yards per reception for him on the season. 29. Okay. He's never going to be PPR guy where he gets you 6-7 receptions a game. All he needs is 3 receptions to return value for you. And if one of those goes for a touchdown, you're looking at a top 20 receiver on the week. So,
and they've had a hard schedule too. The Raiders have had a bad schedule, especially last week against the Bucs, who we actually had a couple chances for big plays against. But I mean, Carlton Davis actually knocked the touchdown right out of his hand. But like, this is the game. Like the Browns defense is nothing to be scared of. And I know Denzel Ward's a good corner. He's not expected to be on Ruggs for whatever reason. So if I'm going to just go under that assumption that he's not on him, because if he is, that's obviously going to make it more difficult because they're basically the same size and speed caliber. So either way, the Ruggs, I think this is the Ruggs breakout game.
Yeah, I agree. I have him as wide receiver 30, I believe, on the week. Like I'm all aboard with that. Talking about guys, we're going to transition to guys that we are lower on. And I'm just going to put Travis Fulgham in here. I get it. He's been playing very well to start the season. I believe on a points per game basis, he's a top 5 receiver right now But I mean, with regular
He's just
expected,
very high in consensus.
yeah.
I have him lower too.
Yeah, same. Again, this is nothing to do with him, more so to do with where consensus has him currently at 16. I have him at 20. But with regular expected to return this week, while I like Fulgham, I just can't really get on board with ECR ranking him that high, especially with the changing dynamic of the Eagles receiving corps. Again, you mentioned Rager's coming back. We don't necessarily know how Goddard's can be fully used with him being healthy again. Like Richard Rodgers. Well, I mean, was Goddard playing? Either way, Richard Rodgers, even if
Goddard's not playing, but I think he was activated off IR and he's practicing now.
So he's going to come back next week regardless. Either way, even if it's Richard Rodgers instead of Goddard. Richard Rodgers showed last week he was involved. Like overall, this is just such a ambiguous receiving type corps for the Eagles. You ultimately don't know how the volume's going to get affected with a guy like Reagor expected to come back. So while I like Fulgham, I have him as a top 20 receiver. 16 just a tad too high, in my opinion, for him.
Yeah, I totally agree there. One other guy that I do have lower than consensus is I have a little bit of an issue with Robert Woods, obviously because he cost me a matchup. But Robert Woods, I have 9 spots lower than consensus, mainly because Robert Woods hasn't been great. He has not been. He hasn't killed you most weeks. He hasn't had a really good game. He had one game where he had like 17 points, and that's about it. Every other game, it's been like 10, 8, 10, like whatever. And then he had a bad game last week. I think as I mentioned, the Rams are running at one of the highest clips in the NFL. Team pass plays per game for the Los Angeles Rams ranks number 28 in the NFL. I just don't think there's enough volume to continue to rank Cooper Kupp inside the top 15, Robert Woods inside the top 15, Tyler Higbee as a top 15 tight. Like there's just not enough volume for that. And on top of that, he draws Xavier Howard in coverage. So it's just not a great Robert Woods situation this week. And I just traded him. I told you guys about my trade. He was kind of an add-in. It was between him and DJ Chark with Antonio Gibson and Joe Mixon for Alvin Kamara. But I think I did a good thing by getting rid of him because I think his volume and his value is just going to continue to decline.
Yeah, I agree there. It's actually funny because a couple weeks ago, I had made a trade where I acquired Deshaun Watson, Miles Sanders, and Brandon Cooks for Matt Ryan, Robert Woods, and Joe Mixon. And at the time, I'm like, okay, the main thing here is the downgrade from Woods to Cooks. I don't know how that's going to play out.
I think Cooks is better than Woods right now.
That's what I was just about to say. I mean, I thought that was a downgrade at the time, and Cooks has been playing better. So, I mean, overall, Woods is just not the same consistent week-to-week player that we saw last year. That's mostly not really due to his own.
He's not playing insanely good. He's not playing bad.
It's the volume of the offense. As we mentioned with Goff, he was 626 pass attempts last year. Now he's on pace for just 500 or so.
I think he belongs in the conversation with guys like Jarvis Landry because it's the same type of situation. Even Landry now has no Odell Beckham on the opposite side. So he might even be better than that. Another guy that I want to talk about, another just matchup related thing. DK Metcalf, I have 8 spots lower than consensus. Why? Because Jason Verrett is a bad man. Obviously, so is DK. DK is a fucking bad man too. But this has another kind of feeling of a huge Tyler Lockett game. Last week was predictable. Tyler Lockett had an impeccable matchup in the slot against the Cardinals slot corner versus Patrick Peterson on the outside for DK Metcalf. And Jason Verrett has played better than Patrick Peterson this season. And I think DK Metcalf is going to have a bit of a struggle going up against Jason Verrett. And Tyler Lockett goes up against the backup nickel for San Francisco. And I think he's going to absolutely cook him.
Yeah, I fully agree. Talking about the other side of that game quickly with the last receiver, basically we're going to be talking about. That's going to be Brandon Ayuk, 6 spots lower. This has nothing really to do with Ayuk.
You have him lower than consensus.
His consensus is 20, bro.
Yeah, I have him at 21, I think, or 22.
Yeah, I have him 6 spots lower. I still like him, but 20 is just something I can't bite the bullet. It's just a little too rich for my.
You know how many points the Seahawks have given up to receivers?
No,
it's like mind-bogglingly high.
And
I get crazy how high.
And I get that. I still really like him as a high-end wide receiver 3 or so, but 20 is just. I can't bite that.
I can, dude. He had a 100-yard game last week, and Debo's not there. I think he's going to be a top 20 receiver this week.
I could just see Kittle bouncing back and like.
Oh, he absolutely could. Kittle could have a great game too, but I think there's enough room for both of them in this terrible matchup or in this terrible defense that they're going up against.
It's definitely fair. I could definitely see him returning on value. I just personally can't. I can't put him ahead of some of those receivers in the top 20 or top 25. Like I don't know. I could be dead wrong on this, but it's just.
We might have to do a bet on that one if you want
Yeah.
to take a receiver in that range, because I believe in Ayuk this week.
We can do. Well, I mean,
We'll do it live on the stream
okay.
if we want to talk about it then.
Maybe even like a Jarvis Landry. We could do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like Jarvis Landry's matchup too, though, so I don't know.
Fair. Okay, we'll get into tight ends. Again, a lot of overlap here, so you can go into your first couple guys as well, and I can just add on to it.
Yeah, normally we don't have a lot of like difference between ECR and us. Like it's usually like, oh, I'm 3 spots lower than consensus. Like I have a like big differences.
Yeah, same.
I have Harrison Bryant. I have 9 spots higher than Austin Hooper, than consensus has him. But the reason is because Austin Hooper is not playing in this game. Odell is not playing in this game. This kid's talented, and he and Baker obviously have a great connection. He nearly ran 80% of the snaps last week. He had 2 red zone targets, 14 routes run. Like when he was on the field in his limited kind of capacity last week, he was great. And I think that's going to continue with Odell out for the rest of the season, and with Austin Hooper dealing with injuries. I think this guy is going to get more and more acclimated to the NFL and more established. Like he might be a guy that I'm really into next year.
Yeah,
depending obviously what happens with Hooper, but this dude is looking like a starting tight end for fantasy.
Again, I fully agree. Little shout out to myself. He was my tight end 2 in the draft process. So, or he was top 3 at least, give or take. It was him, Troutman, and Kmet. But
I had a Kmet, Troutman, and him.
Yeah. So I mean, I have him 4 spots higher, and that's simply due to the unproven factor. And honestly, looking at my tight end rankings right now, realistically, I mean,
he's in my top 10.
Gesicki, Cook, Tonyan would kind of be like him with those 3 guys would be like neck and neck regardless. So I could make the case to have him at 11 personally. But
if you want to go Tonyan versus him straight up, I'll take that every day of the week.
I don't even know if I want to do that now. I mean, those guys are freaking neck and neck for me, basically. But yeah, no, I fully agree. I love Harrison Bryant. He's such an athletic marvel. He's getting the opportunity now. Fireman, I'm happy with that. Talking about the guy I am extremely higher on than consensus. I mean, Jimmy Graham, 7 spots higher than consensus. I did not think going into the season I would be able to do that, but it just can someone explain to me why he's so low right now? I mean, ECR 15. New Orleans is the league worst defense against the tight end position on points per game, and Graham is the tight end 8 on season in half PPR. I mean, he's only had 1 true bust game on the season, and he's had 5 targets every single week. Like, I get it. He is gross. I understand that. You don't want to set your lineup and see Jimmy Graham's freaking bald face looking at you back. But he's been playing like it, so you got to give him the respect. Again, with A-Rob questionable, Graham should help.
A-Rob's out. He's out for this game.
Oh, so he is out. Okay.
Like, not confirmed, but they're like, he hasn't practiced all week with his concussion. I don't think he's going to play.
Yeah, either way, okay, we expect him out. I mean, he should help ease the load for the Bears passing offense. And to me, I mean, ECR 15 for a guy who has played like a top 8 tight end thus far with Allen Robinson there. Now Allen Robinson's out. Like, I'm disconnected with what the heck that is. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to have to move him up because I actually have him at 15. But now that Allen Robinson's out, he's probably going to be inside my top 12. A couple other guys, I'm just going to run through this because we're running a little long on this, but Eric Ebron is 7 spots higher than consensus. This is my Jimmy Graham. Why the hell is Eric Ebron tight end 19 in consensus? Like, I have no idea what the hell that's about. Ebron has been great for fantasy. He has 5, 7, 6, 4, and 8 targets over the last 5 weeks. His targets are, and that's consistent volume for a tight end. Like, you might be like, 4 targets 1 week. Like, that's not even that bad for your, like, lowest target game for a tight end. I view him as a back-end tight end 1 for the rest of the season. I view him as a back-end tight end 1 this week. I'm not sure why ECR is so low on him.
Yeah, I got to raise him a little bit. Again, I'm like you. I currently have Matt ECR, but looking at it, he's probably going to get ahead of Engram. And I know we made the bet with Burton, but I'm going to raise him ahead of Burton, Richard Rodgers. And, yeah, so he'll probably be around the 16 range for me. But just hoping, even though I'm going to contradict myself here, hoping Burton still outproduces him, even though I'm going to have him lower than Ebron.
Let's talk about Trey Burton, because I have him 9 spots lower than consensus. Yeah. I have him at like tight end 26 right now because Trey Burton is not the tight end 1 in Indianapolis. He's not even the tight end 2 in Indianapolis because Mo Alley Cox is back, who is the tight end 1 for fantasy purposes, and Jack Doyle is still there and still playing, who's the tight end 2 for fantasy purposes. So as far as I'm concerned, Trey Burton can sit his ass on the bench because that's where he belongs.
Fair. Again, it's a situation where if he does see the volume, it's going to be a lot of volume. If he doesn't see the volume, it's going to be no volume, if that makes sense. Like, if he's getting the playing time, he's going to be
his floor is a donut, easily.
his floor is a donut. His ceiling is top 10 this week. In
I
my
don't
opinion.
think. I don't think that ever happens again. I think he had a lucky week.
It may won us our bet though, but
Yeah, I want to start bet, but I think he had a lucky week. Another guy I want to talk about is Irv Smith, who's 6 spots higher than consensus for me. Rudolph is apparently on the trade block. They're talking about selling him. I don't think anyone's going to trade for him because he's not very good and his contract's big. But either way, Irv's usage is going up. If you see on the chart on the screen right now, you'll see his routes run in the past 2 weeks, 31 routes the last 2 weeks compared to 12 and 17 the previous 2 before that. That's crazy increase in volume. He also had 3 red zone targets in the last 2 weeks over the 2 games. And he's running 72.5% and 81.6% of the snaps and getting 4 targets in each game. Like this dude's a great athlete. He's a great player. He's a young ascending talent, and he's getting more volume now. He's finally getting some opportunity. I think he's going to be a great stash going forward. Him and Dallas Goedert, to me, are the 2 tight ends I feel comfortable rostering on my bench without the intention of playing quite yet. And even still, I still think you can play him if you need to.
Yeah, no, I agree. Love Irv Smith Jr. Again, the unproven factor is why I only have him 2 spots higher than consensus. But I think 20 right now, again, I've talked about him on the waiver show multiple times. I think 20 right now is going to end up being like 13, 14 by next week, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Like he's that talented. The 2 guys I'm going to mention that I have lower than consensus, just to kind of wrap it up, unless you have any more to add on Raptor.
I'll run through mine really fast right now. So I have Higbee 6 spots higher than consensus. He's not a great option, but this is still the tight end position. And Higbee's a starting guy running some routes and has a big ceiling, as we've seen. So 26 is just too low for me. I'm at 20, so I'm not like super high on him. But Richard Rodgers, I have 7 spots lower than consensus. I'm not ready to crown the guy just yet. I know it's the Cowgirls defense and they suck ass, but I think the receivers getting healthier and Fulgham emerging dings the tight ends until Dallas Goedert comes back. And then Robert Tonyan, 7 spots lower than consensus. He's basically the same as Higbee in my opinion. He seems great, but he's only had 1 good game. I just need to see more before I put him in my top 15, to be honest. He's like top 10 in ECR right now. I don't agree.
Yeah, that's fair. Talking about the 2 guys I'm lower on. Again, both guys are ranked actually in the top 10, so it might sound spicy here. But I mentioned Jimmy Graham, and he's going up against the Saints. On the flip side of that matchup, I'm going to talk about Jared Cook, who I have currently 3 spots lower. Might even be lower once I adjust Brian going into the Sunday games. But, I mean, Jared Cook has just been so much more touchdown dependent than a lot of tight ends. Again, we understand that. But, I mean, with the Saints expected to be without MT, Sanders, and Callaway, as I mentioned it as a positive for Graham, maybe seeing more volume. On the flip side, Jared Cook has never been a guy who thrives with the spotlight, with the attention of a defense. We've seen that multiple times. We expect him, this guy's out, he's going to step up. He's never been able to, because ultimately he's a guy who's the ultimate complementary type weapon for an offense. You know, you have an MT on the outside, you can feed Jared Cook down the seam, he's going to be ultra efficient for you. But if Jared Cook is relied upon to be the number 1 target on your team's offense, then he just simply disappeared in games. So I have him currently at 12, and that might honestly go down to like 13, 14. I just do not think he's going to have a good game, especially in a tougher matchup against a good Chicago Bears defense. I understand they're allowing middle/average points to the tight end position. I just think that most of the time it's been because other teams have had viable threats on the outside that they've been able to clamp down, so a team has to have thrown to the tight end position. But with the Saints lacking any real true identity on the outside in terms of weapons, Jared Cook is just not going to be able to perform up to expectations against that stout Bears defense. And another guy I mentioned, Hunter Henry, 3 spots lower than consensus. I currently am like 10, and even
I
kind of feels
that.
Really, eh?
Oh yeah.
I mean, he hasn't crossed 40 receiving yards since week 3 and has 1 touchdown on the season. He's just simply he's neither a volume hog nor a touchdown hog. And he's constantly being grouped in that second tier tight ends with guys like Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, and Jonnu Smith. So he just needs to perform before I rank him anything more than what he's been.
I mean, he's been fine. If you look at his numbers, he's been just fine in my opinion.
I mean, he hasn't crossed 40 receiving yards since week 3.
Yeah, but the target volume has been fine.
He's
been consistent targets. There's not many tight ends that get the target volume that Hunter Henry gets.
I get it, but I mean, you still have to do something with the targets. He just hasn't been playing
obviously,
well.
Yeah. You got to do something with it. I just got a trade. That's why I've been looking at my phone. But I got a trade offer in one league. What do you think about this? This guy offered. I don't think I'm going to do it, but it's actually not a bad trade offer. This guy offered me Antonio Gibson and Jarvis Landry for Josh Jacobs and Jerry Jeudy. I don't think I'm going to do it, but it's a little interesting knowing that Josh Jacobs has been quite inconsistent thus far. And I do have I have quite a bit of like running backs on my team that I can't even use right now because I have so many good running backs. I have DeAndre Swift on my bench and I can't start him. I have Justin Jackson on my bench and I can't start him because my running backs are so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way,
I
that's
still
just
wouldn't, but
I don't think I'm going to do it because I think Jacobs is going to improve going forward because his schedule gets easier. But
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I wouldn't do it personally, but again, just briefly touching upon Hunter Henry again before we get out of here. The problem that I have with him, again, it's one thing to get the targets. I understand that. Again, Logan Thomas has gotten a ton of targets. He had basically one good week on the season. I mean, you can get all the targets you want if you're just not playing well, playing efficient on the targets. Ultimately, I don't care if you're not able to cross 40 targets despite or 40 receiving yards despite getting such a touch volume or touch output, if you will, or target output, if you will.
Logan Thomas hasn't had one game with less than 7 targets, though. That's crazy volume. Volume like Logan Thomas gets is like he'll have a 6-target game here and there. Like Hunter Henry has had one game where he didn't have 7 targets or more.
It's fair. I don't know. We might have to make a bet on Hunter Henry this week then.
Yeah.
Maybe Jimmy Graham versus Hunter Henry.
I think I would take Hunter Henry there.
Okay, we'll do that then. We'll talk about it more on the live stream, but if you guys made it this far in the video, make sure you go smash that like button. Comment down below what are your thoughts on our rankings versus consensus. And if you're new to the channel, enjoying the content that you've seen thus far, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I mean, we're on that road to 3K. We just hit 2K about a week ago. Thank you guys so much for that. We're currently at about, 2.1K give or take right now. So appreciate you guys supporting us again. Just coming at you every day with the daily fantasy content, quality content. But appreciate y'all. We'll see you on Sunday's live stream. And until then, peace out.
Peace out.
Let me